Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I am your host, Jeff Seltzer. Once again, I'm really excited to obviously be on this podcast. We've had an awesome few weeks, I would say, since the break. It's been a really awesome list of guests that I've had the last month or so, starting off with Katya Summers, the author, Josh Breezy, the professional wrestler. The week that we were live at PWJ, which is, as I said a few weeks ago, was an amazing experience. We eventually followed up with card collecting with Daniel and Marcus, which to this day actually had the best first week of any episode ever from the most streams and such like that. Lots of interest there, lots of new listeners, so really excited about that. Last week we had Kim Hunter, a good friend of mine, talking about photography and learning a little bit about her life, which was really a lot of fun. This week we have another person coming on as well. My first Jeff outside of myself that'll be on the show, so I'm really excited to to talk Jeffs, I guess you can say. And this is not the other Jeff Seltzer. This is another Jeff, but we'll talk about that momentarily. What I do want to say, though, is from an appreciation perspective, this has definitely been quite a journey for me from a podcast perspective. So obviously I launched this show back in July. This is, I believe, episode number 30, I want to say, which for me, like, I'm just really excited about the fact that I've made it 30 episodes. I think I've seen a couple of stats that most podcasts don't last beyond 10 episodes. The fact that I've gone 30 at this point is really mind-numbing to me, or mind-blowing, I guess, in the fact that I've been able to get enough guests to justify being on this long. Additionally, obviously, with the solo pods, able to get enough content out there. But the fact that there are people that are out there listening and willing and interested in listening to what I have to say or watching what I say, which is really cool. So really excited about that. Want to remind everybody that from an Instagram perspective, the show can be found over at Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Instagram is at Seltzer77. You can find the show on YouTube at Everybody Has a Story Pod. For all of your Jeff Seltzer needs, you can go ahead and find me over at jeffseltzer.com. The show is available on all podcast platforms. So as mentioned before, we are on YouTube at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Video is also on Spotify. You can find the audio over at Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast, you can generally find this podcast. Additionally, wanted to make sure everyone's aware that if you have any business interests, let's say, or anything you want to send me, you can email the show at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail. With that said, I do want to introduce my guest for this week. Really excited. This is one of those guests I would say that like I've very little knowledge of or really haven't met before this. Just met from a couple minutes before we went on the air, which for me is always an excitement, right? An adventure. Some guests, I'm close friends with or I've known for years. Some of them I meet via social media and thus brings us together. And, I chat for a few minutes before to get understanding of like how a conversation could go and kind of go with it. So with that said, I do want to introduce our guest for this week is Jeff Minaglia. Jeff, how are you today?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. So first of all, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. You are the first non-Seltzer named Jeff that we've had on the show. So just going at it real quick, Jeff is, in my experience, a relatively dead name at this point. Nobody under the age of 30 or 35 is named Jeff anymore, unless they're a Jeff Jr. or a Jeff the Third. That's been my experience. Obviously, we've been replaced by Aidens and Hunters and other kinds of names. So to see another Jeff out there is always refreshing.
Oh, yeah.
With that said, Jeff, so obviously most of my listeners, myself included, know very little about you. Would you mind just giving us a little background on who is Jeff?
How much time we got? No, so yeah, I'm just, regular guy, likes to, have a creative outlet with many things, which we can talk about later, but enjoys concerts, going to trivia, outside of work and stuff, and, playing video games, listening to podcasts, cooking,
awesome,
all sorts of things. Yeah. So
very cool. Yeah. And we'll get into that in a little bit also. I know our listeners will eventually become aware of the fact that you have a Patreon, you have various vlogs that you've worked on, obviously going by the nickname of Jeffy in some of these, which is a different play on Jeffrey or Jeff, which is cool to see. But as everyone sees in the topic for this week, I did want to talk a little about concerts. So from a concert perspective, I'll kind of give my experience first, and we'll talk into, I guess, what you've done and kind of what your favorites are. For me, concerts are always a very fun experience in the fact that, good or bad, it's a chance to get out with my friends or get out of kind of like my normal space, have a drink, maybe experience something, and even with opening acts, kind of learn and kind of see new acts that I haven't seen before. For me personally, my first concert that I went to, I believe, was June of 1995, I saw The Offspring at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park. Growing up in New Jersey, lots of great shows, lots of great opportunities in the Jersey, Philadelphia, New York City area. Since then, I've gone to lots of different types of concerts. I've gone to rock concerts. I went to a country concert, which maybe I won't ever do again, but that happened, I guess. I've been to like hip hop shows. I've been to like in the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of, let's say, festivals and events, lots of different things. My listeners may or may not know at this point that I do have a very diverse interest in music, from rock to rap to everything else like that, classic rock, things like that. Again, for me, it's a way to kind of experience things and kind of see things in a different way, because obviously you can listen to a CD or streaming, but when you actually see it live, it's just a very different feel to it. With that said, Jeff, I wanted to get into, before we get into kind of current experiences, do you remember your first concert you ever went to?
Yes, I do. It was at the so I live in Florida now, but I was born and raised in suburbs of Chicago,
Okay.
in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Nice.
And my first concert I ever went to, my parents ever took me to, was Neil Diamond
Oh, wow.
in September 15th, 1996. It was at the United Center. I still have the ticket stub for the video
Oh, that's really
viewers.
awesome.
And I have a program from that.
Oh, wow.
The first concert still.
That's cool.
Other than that, yeah, it was. So I grew up a big fan of my music tastes vary from like oldies to like metal to like a little bit of rap, not too much, and then a little bit of country and just everything in between. So I was a real big Neil Diamond fan at this point, and to be able to go and him performing like over like it was well over 20 songs, I think, that night. It was just, and the stage was so cool because it was rotating. It was like a big circle,
Oh,
and it
wow.
would go, circle around in the middle, and then so you get a view of, he did a view of the entire arena that way. It was a really cool show.
Nice. So let me ask you this then,
So
because I assume that you're a few years younger than I am. So Neil Diamond, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm 41.
Oh, so you are about 6 years younger than I am. So
Yeah.
obviously we both, I'd say, probably grew up a little beyond Neil Diamond's prime, right? Because Neil Diamond probably had his biggest times, like 70s, maybe early 80s.
Right.
The movie The Jazz Singer, he had some stuff like that. What got you into Neil Diamond? Like, was it your parents were into it and you kind of bonded with them over it, or you kind of like woke up and heard it one day, or kind of like, what was it about Neil Diamond that you're like, and again, this is before Sweet Caroline was big, right? Like growing up, nobody really cared about it. It wasn't until, let's say, the early 2000s that I think the Boston Red Sox might have played it and were excited about it. Like, what pulled you into Neil Diamond?
Well, definitely my parents, I think, had a big influence. Because I remember my parents all had all these. They never had any. Well, wait. Actually, they did have the Jazz Singer record. Now that I remember, but they had a cassette. It was like his 12 classic hits or whatever. I remember of his that I listened to. Well, what really got me into even listening to his music was when I was introduced to my biggest influence, Elvis Presley.
Okay.
And so I first, we were at a road trip gas station stop when they sold the cassette tapes. I saw this. It says it was Elvis Presley "Love Me Tender" cassette tape, and I asked my mom who this was. I didn't know anything about him at the time. She's like, "It's the greatest entertainer and singer that ever lived," something along those lines. And they got the cassette for me, and ever since then I was hooked.
Okay.
And then I started listening to my local radio station, Oldies 104.3 WJMK, and that's when I discovered guys like Neil Diamond and the Beach Boys and all these other artists and stuff like that. And and so I've always been a big fan of that type of music. And my parents definitely had an influence, for sure.
Nice. Great to hear.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. So it sounds like, I mean, at least, growing up, you were largely into, let's say, classic rock or kind of things that came out like years earlier, right? I mean, by the time you and I were born, Elvis was long gone. So obviously no opportunity to see him live. Um,
Yeah.
Historically, I mean, obviously over the years or whatever, I assume you've probably picked up new artists and new bands that you've liked and such. And being that you do like a lot of concerts, I assume that not all of your, musical interests are dead at this point. What other, I guess, concerts or artists and such like that have you been into over the years that either you picked up like as they were making it big, or like, you're like, hey, so and so's doing a reunion tour, so let's check them out.
Oh yeah. Well, I've had the opportunity to see my top three favorite bands or artists,
Okay.
but not exactly in the way I wanted to see them, but I still saw them. What I mean by that is, um, first there was back in 2011. Uh, are you familiar with the term "golden birthday"? That's
Uh,
when
Pretend to know
your
that.
age. Okay, well, your age. That's when your age is the same day as your birthday. So,
Okay.
for example, when I turned 28 on the October 28th,
Okay.
that was my golden birthday. I saw Guns N' Roses.
Oh wow.
However,
Okay.
it wasn't they didn't reunite yet. Axl and Slash didn't reunite yet. It was the Chinese Democracy lineup, but it was still Axl Rose, and it was still a great concert, and it was like long 3 hour set. It was insane, and it
So
was a
actually,
late night that night.
let me ask you about this, just to that point or whatever. So I saw Guns N' Roses about a year ago. Um,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the Axel that we're getting now is probably not the Axel that we'd like to hear. Like I would say, and again,
like
I'd like to compare experiences here. So I thought the band sounded phenomenal. Right. I think it was for the most
like
part the original band, the original musicians. Slash sounds great. They all sounded great.
yeah.
But Axel, I think Axel of 1987 would be mocking like crazy the Axel of today's voice. How did Axel sound back
I've
in 2011?
I was gonna say he still had it back in 2011, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen video, and it's if I saw him today, I would be like, I don't know,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, they put on a full show. Like it was like to your point, it was like 2.5,
Yeah,
3 hours. They played like 30 plus songs, and
yeah,
musically, I thought it was fantastic. I loved it.
like
On a side note, and again, this is where kind of opening acts come in weird too. So I saw them at MetLife Stadium about a year and a half ago with a buddy of mine. The Pretenders opened. Pretenders sounded great. I mean, she sounded just like she did probably years ago. But as a bonus opening act, we also got Andrew Dice Clay, the comedian, which
nice.
I would say, in a normal world, I would say is fantastic. I mean, I love comedy. I love that kind of stuff. The problem was it was an all ages show outdoors at MetLife Stadium. So as Andrew Dice Clay is, I'm going to keep it clean here, giving his, let's say, his hits, you've got 7-year-olds sitting right in front of me, and the parents just look like, what do we do now? Like, this is super bizarre. It was definitely one of the more surreal moments I've ever experienced, I'd say, in my
Little
life.
Miss Muffet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. All those things. Right. And it's one of those things where, like, again,
yeah.
growing up, I heard the things even as I got older. I mean, obviously in streaming and stuff, I've listened to Dice's material. First time I ever saw him live, I'm not sure MetLife Stadium is necessarily the best place to see Andrew Dice Clay live, especially in an all ages show. But I mean, this is what happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had said you saw Guns N' Roses on your golden birthday, on your 28th birthday. Um,
Yeah.
so what are the other two concerts that you said you saw that were kind of like your, what you needed to say?
Well, then the following year, I saw my third favorite band. This one at least was a little close enough to the original lineup. Only difference was it was uh, the son replacing Michael Anthony. I saw
Oh,
Van
Van Halen.
Halen
Nice. Very cool.
with David Lee Roth, and oh man, I still to this day that's probably one of my favorite concerts I ever seen. To see Eddie perform live
Yeah, yeah.
was just incredible. I mean, we were in the nosebleeds for that, but like it was worth it. You didn't hear it, you can still see it. It was just and they had a giant screen. It was worth it. And Cool in the Dane opened for
Oh
that
wow.
them too. So that was a wild mix of styles there, but it was still fun. It was a great show. And my third would be I saw Black Sabbath in 2013.
Oh wow.
But not with Bill Ward. It was with I think it was Tommy Kleptos or something like that was his name, the drummer. When they had their 13 album out, so it was a 13 tour.
Nice.
So I mean, like I said,
you got Ozzy though, which I think is the key, right?
oh yeah,
Make sure you got Ozzy
I
there.
would have loved. I would have loved to see his one of his solo shows instead of a Sabbath show because
Sure.
I love I love both his solo stuff and Black Sabbath, but his solo stuff more because I was introduced to his solo stuff first
Right.
through my cousin, and then I listened to Sabbath. But nevertheless, it was still all three great concerts, and I got to see the three of them within a span of 3 years. So it was great for concerts back then.
Which is amazing, especially considering, I mean, sitting here in 2025, at least two of those concerts will never happen again, right? Like Black
Yeah.
Sabbath, definitely, because Ozzy, based on what I'm reading, is not really in tour shape.
Well, he is doing that one final show, and
Oh,
Bill
is he?
Ward's on board now in
Oh,
during the summer in UK. So
okay. Well, then
that's all the buzz.
maybe there's an opportunity, but
Uh,
it's obviously very limited. And Van Halen,
oh
if they
yeah,
all hate each other, will. I mean, obviously, if money's
yeah,
involved, maybe at some point, like Oasis. But for the most part, if I'm a betting man, and I am a betting man, it's probably not going to
yeah.
happen again, right?
I mean, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. You can't you can't have Van Halen without Eddie.
It's tough.
So
It's tough.
yeah.
So all three shows obviously sound phenomenal and obviously have important points in your life in terms of what you've experienced. Were they arena shows, stadium shows, or kind of a mix of each?
Trying to think. Oh yeah, they were all arenas. Van Halen and Guns N' Roses were at the same arena,
Okay.
the Amway Center, which is now the TIA Center, in Orlando with the Orlando Magic play,
Yep.
and then Ozzy was Tampa in Tampa
Where
at
the
the
Lightning play?
fairgrounds.
Where the Lightning
No,
play? Or no?
no, it was an amphitheater. It was a
Okay.
fairgrounds.
Got it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Nice. Do you
So
so I mean, obviously you said you live near Orlando area, so I guess the closest outdoor stadiums you have would be where the Buccaneers play. Do you go to
yeah,
outdoor stadium shows, or are you just trying to stick to the arena shows?
that Ozzy show was an outdoor stadium.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, I mainly go to the local venues. Like I try to keep it local. Like we have a House of Blues, we have a Hard Rock Live,
At Universal,
and
right?
then
That's awesome. Yeah.
and we have a couple places downtown. The last few years, we've been seeing concerts at this place called the Plaza.
Okay.
It used to be like an old theater or something. I don't know. It's a small venue, but it is what it is. And then we got like this place called the Social and stuff. So we have a couple of good local venues here. So
do you prefer what kind of show do you prefer? So obviously, regardless of the band, do you prefer like small club shows? Do you prefer like arena shows, stadium shows? Like what helps you to either enjoy it the most or feel the vibe or whatever it is you're looking for out of a concert?
I mean, I don't mind either, but like I feel like the smaller venues are more, personal, and you feel the music more. Whereas if you're in a big stadium, you can still feel, depending on how the presentation is. Well, okay, there's certain bands you need to see in stadiums.
Sure.
Case in point, my one group that I've seen perform the most live is this orchestra called Trans Siberian Orchestra.
Yes, around the holiday time,
And
they're big up here. They're pretty solid. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so you've seen them?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
the Christmas show is amazing.
Yeah. I've seen them like 14 times.
Oh wow.
Those concerts alone with the Christmas tours, it's incredible. But then there's other shows like I said, I saw the Killers at Hard Rock Live.
Yep.
And they were. I've heard good things about seeing that show, but they blew my expectations out of the water. Like they exceeded my expectations rather. And like from the first song they did, we were in my wife and I were in the pit at the time.
Okay.
And the place everyone was jumping, and you could feel the floor under you move. It was so cool. It was just there's people having a great time. So it all depends on like the certain. It all depends on who's playing and who you're seeing. You know, um, but like I said, I do prefer like the personal like non stadiums.
Yeah.
They tend to be fairly cheaper too,
Sure.
because the
Sure.
stadium ones are just ridiculous, especially these days. It's just insane with the prices. But
Definitely adds up.
yeah,
So, like from a concert perspective, so are you, and just kind of get into your mind here, are you generally a last minute, like I'll get tickets, day of, or like as soon as they're on sale, are you getting to the pre-sale and kind of like trying to get in through stuff up if you can't? Like, kind of, how do you usually like get into or kind of like get tickets for your shows?
I would usually get them ahead of time if we were definite, like ongoing, or when they would go on sale.
Yeah.
Uh, but like I said, nowadays it all depends. Nowadays it's hard because, like I said, the ticket prices are just ridiculous.
Right.
I did manage to score. Um, my wife is a Queensryche fan,
Okay.
and Jeff Tate's going on tour for his Operation Mindcrime for the last time. He's so we're seeing that at the House of Blues in April,
Awesome.
and I ordered that for Christmas because she loves that album, and so I wanted to, he's performing it for the last time, so I wanted to see it. So that should be a fun show. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I did that. So I did that like obviously in like November. Yeah, November, and the show's not till April. So
Yeah.
I like to. I don't do day of.
Right.
Basically,
So
I prefer getting them
you're a
ahead
little
of
more
time.
you're a little more of a planner than a last minute kind of spontaneous when it comes to shows.
Yeah, certain aspects I'm spontaneous, but not when it comes to concerts
Gotcha.
because I want a good spot or a good seat. It depends on the seating and stuff. So
Of course. Do you have any other shows
yeah.
that are coming up in the next, let's say, year or so that you're either excited about or you have tickets for or something that you're kind of like looking forward to?
Unfortunately, just the Jeff Tate concert at the
Okay.
moment. Yeah, I don't have anything else planned for now that I know of who's coming.
Gotcha. Anything? So we talked a lot about like 2011ish or so, like three huge shows that meant a lot to you. Anything in the last few years that you've gone to that you're like, man, that was amazing, or I love that, or on the flip side, like, hey, I went to it and it wasn't nearly as good as I hoped it would be.
Um, I haven't really had that many like bad concert experiences.
Okay.
There was only there was one band at the time. It was on my like back in 2002. It was my second concert ever, um, and I only went because I think I was still. It was an all ages show, but I was still too young to do anything. In We were on vacation, and my parents wanted to do Pleasure Island, and so I got to see Kitty at House of Blues.
Oh
I don't know
well.
if you're familiar with.
Yes.
Yeah,
Spit. They had the song like 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
That was it, right?
I've heard of them.
Yes.
I don't really knew that. And then this is also when they still had smoking at the House of Blues and all
Yeah.
stuff was allowed. And it was just I left early. It was not a good show. I didn't know any of the other bands. It was
Right.
I don't know. But that was my only bad kinds of experience. But other than that, it was everything else has been. Last few years, like I said, I've seen not because Jeff Tate's not a part of Queensway anymore. It's that Todd, I forgot his last name.
Sure.
But we've seen him the last 2 years because the wife, again, big Queensway fan.
Yep.
And prior to that, man, I'm trying to think. Prior to that was what the last concert I saw. I think. Oh well, no. I also saw the Beach Boys last year at the Strawberry Festival.
There you go.
But and then I seen some local bands too. Shout out to my friend April and her band Auditory Armory
Nice.
down here in the Orlando area. But other than that, I haven't gone to a concert. Probably before those, probably my last one was I want to say Oh, Sebastian Bach
Yep, Skid
was,
Row. Yeah,
yeah, Sebastian Bach. And then before that was Andrew WK.
nice,
And I saw Fozzy show too,
awesome,
Frusciato's band.
awesome. So
So yeah,
it sounds like both you and your wife enjoy concerts. So I would imagine something you
yeah,
guys bond over, and like if you're looking for a good night out, just the two of you, a concert's a great place to go just to kind of have fun, right?
yeah,
That's awesome. Great deal. What I will say is, so I know you'd mentioned a concert or two that, I mean, Kitty, obviously, I'd say was a one hit wonder from about 20, almost 25 years ago at this point. So obviously,
yeah.
a weird concert to go to. For me, my least favorite concert I ever went to was probably in 2001. I saw Bob Dylan. A buddy of mine had an extra ticket, and he was like, "Hey, Jeff, you want to go?" I was like, "Sure, I'll go to any concert, whatever." We went, and it was just awful. I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. I'm
Wow.
not into
Okay.
his music. I had no idea what he was saying. He was just mumbling the whole time, but this is what Bob Dylan does. It
I
just was
mean,
not.
yeah,
It was not a good experience for me. Let's say. I mean, to be fair, I'm probably more into his son Jacob Dylan with the Wallflowers, as in the late '90s he had a couple of good songs. Bob Dylan, though, I could definitely do without ever seeing or hearing of him again. So obviously, with a movie that just came out or was about to come out, very timely. So maybe I'll watch that and maybe I'll
it
appreciate
came
the
out of yeah,
experience. If it already, maybe I'll watch the movie and
last year.
experience or enjoy the concert a little bit more as I think about it. But for me, again, I was in 2001. I was 24, 25 years old. It just wasn't something I was prepared for. I guess you can say. Um,
Hmm.
it is what it is. I mean, I've gone to lots of great concerts since. You saw the Killers. I saw the Killers years ago. I sat like seventh row at the PNC Art Center here in Jersey. I thought they were an awesome show. They were a lot of fun. I've seen Linkin Park a bunch of times. I'm seeing them again this upcoming summer with the new co-lead singer, which I'm really excited
Nice.
about.
Yeah,
Really a lot of fun. I think she definitely adds another level to it. Definitely not Chester, but it's a different situation. I'm also
yeah.
seeing Weird Al Yankovic this summer too, which for me it's just
Nice.
one
I've
of those things
seen.
where I mean I grew up with Weird Al Yankovic. I mean, as a
Yeah.
child of the '80s, he had all the hits, making fun of all the hits. A buddy of mine was like, "Hey, you want to go?" I was like, "Absolutely." So
Oh, damn it! That's right. So you don't. It's good to see him with Puddles Pity Party. Oh, lucky.
yeah,
Hmm.
and I'm really excited about it. I'm curious what to expect.
I
Again,
wanted to see that tour. They're not coming to in Florida for that tour. Shoot.
well, I'll tell you
But
all
I've seen.
about that. I'm sure in the summer. But what's cool is
I've
someone
seen.
a buddy of mine told me about it. I was like, sure, whatever. And then I went online, saw he had a VIP also. So I'm actually gonna get to meet Weird Al after the concert, get a picture with him. So I'm psyched for that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, he puts on great shows. My brother and I have seen him 3 times
nice.
in concert. So yeah,
Nice, yeah. And this one, like I think the last couple of years or years ago, he played like at some smaller like venues in the area. I'm seeing Madison
yeah,
Square Garden, which I'm really excited about. So with like 18,000
amazing.
people, like I'm very curious to see kind of what the set list looks like, what the show looks like. But again, it's Weird Al. I've been watching him since I was a kid, so I'm super excited for that show.
Yeah, are you familiar with that opener that he's going to be with
I am not. So
Puddles?
are they good?
He's a clown
Okay.
essentially, but he sings and he's really good. He was actually on AGT one time,
Oh wow.
but I know him from he did stuff with Postmodern Jukebox as well. So and then Postmodern Jukebox, if you don't know, is they do like a jazz and standard class of like current songs, but like in standard or contemporary or jazz versions.
Nice. Is it kind of like, and I'm not sure if
So,
you get the reference, but years ago, I think his name was Richard Cheese. He used to do like elevator music of like, pop
yeah,
songs, whatever. Like, is
I
that
actually I've seen him too.
oh,
I
awesome.
saw him too. Yeah, yeah, similar.
Very cool.
So yeah,
Yeah. So that should be a fun show then I would imagine. Are
yeah,
there any artists or bands that you haven't seen that I guess realistically you would love to see them go on tour and go see them live if you haven't seen them before?
yeah. And I know they're on tour this year, and I know they're coming to Tampa, but again, it's just a matter of the ticket prices being too much.
Of course.
I would have loved to see Metallica. I'd
Ah,
never seen them.
okay.
Um, and other stuff, uh, probably. Um, I haven't listened to their stuff in a while, but Mumford and Sons is pretty good. I
Nice.
like Mumford and Sons. I like how we just went from Mumford and Sons to Metallica. But
Nice.
like I said, my taste is just all over the place. So
Well, back onto Metallica for a second. I know you said that obviously prices are a bit high, which again, Metallica is doing that. What do you think of
yeah,
their whole thing they've done recently with the 2 night shows, right? Where if you want to see like their entire set list, you've got to go to 2 nights in a row. Like for me,
Yeah, right.
I thought about it when they played at like MetLife. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, and I'm like, it's a huge investment of time and energy and money to buy it for 2 days. You got to buy parking for 2 days.
Yeah,
I respect the fact they even have two different opening acts, which was great. But it's a case of like, if I can only put one night out there and they don't play Enter Sandman the night that I go see them, like I'm gonna hate life. Like,
right,
there
right.
could be one
Yeah,
that's better versus the other. And like for me, I don't necessarily have the energy to kind of do that 2 nights in a row. You know what I mean?
right.
It's a lot. It's expensive too because then it's 2 nights tickets. So to your point, like
Yeah,
an expensive ticket gets doubly pricey because now you got to pay for it twice, tolls
yeah,
twice, parking twice, food twice. It's a whole thing, you know.
yeah. It's crazy.
Um,
So
nice. Yeah, for me, and again, I know you're. It sounds like you're more kind of like rock, classic rock, and such like that. Like I think in a podcast I did a few months ago, there were a couple of things that I had in a wish list that I had. So I was hoping Linkin Park would play, which check, that's going to happen this summer. Michelle Branch, who I'm sure you're a lot less interested in, but for me, she's one of my classics that I loved early 2000s, even more recently, some of her stuff. Hope she tours again, some small clubs.
yeah.
And I'm sure out myself with this one as well. Like Chappell Roan is one who she's super hot on the pop list now. I think she's
Jesus.
amazing. For me, like I can put a couple of songs on just repeat, listen to it over and over again. I would love to see her live,
Hot,
but she's not touring right now. So
hot to go is a guilty pleasure, I will say.
that's so good. That and good luck, babe. That was my number one song last year in Apple Music. Like
Yeah,
my family mocks me. They're like, "Hey, it's your girl." I'm like, "It is my girl. You're absolutely right."
yeah,
But again, that's what's great about music, though, right? Like we all have different styles, different tastes,
yeah.
and there's so many things out there that like what I like, you might not like, but maybe we'll find something in common, and that's what you can bond over, right?
Right. Speaking of guilty pleasures, I'm also a blockhead. New Kids on the Block for life.
Oh,
So
let me ask you this then, because I actually just saw them back in September. Have you seen New Kids live before?
I've seen with the Backstreet Boys. I saw them on the NKOT tour.
That's awesome, amazing,
That was also back in 2011, I believe. Yeah.
nice.
So 2011 was a big year for concerts for me.
It
So
sounds
yeah,
like it. Like I've seen New
yeah,
Kids twice now. So growing up, I'm sure I would have ridiculed and harassed myself if I knew grown up Jeff would watch New Kids on the Block. But I think it was about 5 6 years ago. This was pre-COVID. My wife and I saw New Kids. This is an amazing show. It was New Kids, Paula Abdul, and Boys to Men at like our local arena where the Devils play. Awesome show.
yeah,
And then this past September, I took my 14-year-old Allison, and mainly because she wanted to go see. And this was one of those like radio shows. It was Benson Boone, Tate McRae, Justin Timberlake, and New Kids on the Block. What an amazing show! Like New Kids on the Block,
wow,
they put on an awesome show. Justin was great. My daughter was like mesmerized by Benson Boone, so it was a great show in the fact that we could bond over it, and there was something for everybody, which was great. So it was a lot of fun.
yeah, nice.
Those types of shows are awesome.
Boys to Men made a surprise appearance at the show we were at. They
Nice.
did a couple with they did End of the Road together and Motown Philly and
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Awesome.
pretty awesome. Yeah.
So living in the Orlando area, so I've experienced this a few times, but curious about your perspective. So at Epcot, generally during the fall, they have a bit of a concert series. Well, they'll bring out like
Yes.
mostly kind of like, let's say, older to really old bands that'll come out and play like 5 or 6
I
songs, just the hits. Have you seen any, and kind of like what are some highlights if you have?
Oh yeah, I've a big fan of those concerts as well. Not just in the fall, but for the spring they have Flower and Garden Festival,
Yes.
and they have like the Flower Power series, or well now they call it the Garden Rocks or whatever.
Nice.
But prior to that, I was a big Monkees fan growing up as well. So I've seen Davy Jones, and then when he passed away, Mickey Dolenz came down and performed. So we saw him. That was actually when my wife and I first started dating. That was actually our third. No, it was our second date. I think was to see him at the Flower and Garden Festival at Epcot. Mickey Dolenz in 2012, and then but we've seen like Jefferson Starship, we've seen Survivor. We saw with the Beach Boys used to play there. Now they haven't anymore.
Okay.
We've seen guys like Sugar Ray,
Yep.
Hanson,
Awesome, right? And there's no
Edwin
extra charge.
McCain.
if you have an annual pass or have a ticket for the day, you go in, you just sit down, you got the show, which is
Well,
fantastic.
yeah, my wife works there, so I can get in
Oh, perfect.
anyway. And my mom used to be, she's a retired cast member now, so she gets in too for life, as well.
Awesome.
She's got that annual, like lifetime annual pass or whatever.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Yeah, I so again, living in Jersey, I don't get the opportunities, but I do go down to Disney a few times a year. We have a timeshare down there, but specifically every
nice.
September I go down for Halloween Horror Nights to Universal. But then I always make sure
Nice.
to head over to Disney because I do have an annual pass for Disney. Is maybe about 7, 8 years ago, I think it was. This is the only concert I ever saw there. I saw Living Color, which was fantastic. This is long after obviously CM Punk's been using Cult of Personality, and like for me, like it was this was it. Like this, I go there, I see the 5 songs, the 5 hits they have, and like I was just like, this is amazing. Like such a great opportunity. After the show, like the guys from the band walked around the crowd. I got some pictures with them. It was just such an amazing experience that like any other place it wouldn't have happened.
Out of curiosity, what year was it?
Maybe it was either 16, 17, or 18. I have to check back at the pictures, but it was somewhere, it was like a year or two pre-COVID is when it was, I think.
Yeah, because I saw them as well on my birthday. That was another one of my birthday concerts. Was that seeing them at Epcot, and I wore my CM Punk shirt just to hear the Cult of Personality, and yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, I remember like
Yeah.
as they came to the
So
crowd,
we might have been at the same show.
it could have been. I mean, I remember like as they
Yeah.
came to the crowd, like I was like, "Hey, can I get a selfie with you?" Like, absolutely. And as it's happening, I'm saying like, "Hey, I saw you guys play at WrestleMania. It was WrestleMania 29 at MetLife Stadium as CM Punk was coming,
Yeah.
whatever." And they're like, "Great, whatever." But it was awesome. Give me 1 second. I'm looking. This is some great audio here. Trying to find the picture of me with Living Color. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it took place. It was 2018. So September 20th, 2018 was when I saw them live.
Oh wait, it was September. It wasn't the same show, but I might have. I still saw them on my birthday. So yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, but again, like for there are some older bands that like I don't call them a one hit wonder, but they only have a few songs, so you don't necessarily need to go buy a ticket
right.
to see a full show. So here,
Yes.
they played the same 4 or 5 songs 3 times during the night,
Yeah.
a couple days in a row. It was amazing. So that was great. Cool. So with that said, I know you said you have a few different vlogs and Patreons and things that you work in. I saw just doing some quick research, cooking with Jeffy and Jeffy Time. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about like what some of your personal passion projects are that you have?
The second thing I think you mean is Jeff's Life, which is the vlog. But other than that, yeah, cooking with Jeffy is my cooking show I do on Facebook,
Okay.
and I started that in 2018. And I'm by no means a professional chef, which is the premise of it makes it more entertaining.
Sure.
So if I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing. But I for the most part, I know what I'm doing. But there's still a few shenanigans along the way,
Of course.
and at least everything I've made so far, has been edible. So so, but no. But then back in 2022, I got the idea of starting a Patreon for it, where I have bonus content of besides cooking for like Patreon exclusive episodes. I also do a show called Grocery or Gross, which is like a reaction show. I buy things that I never tried before, and try them, and either I like them or I don't like them. And then on
So
the other two,
real quick at that topic. So give an example of something you've done on that show that you've tried and either was really, really good surprisingly, or you tried it and you're like, this is awful.
uh, awful is anything kombucha related.
Okay.
It tastes terrible. I don't like it at all. But as far as oh man, I always get this. I always draw a blank at this one that I thought would be terrible, but that was actually pretty good. Um, a lot of the international stuff I try because
Okay.
I have international episodes from. I surprisingly have been like a lot of it's surprisingly been good that I've tried. I can't recall. I can't recall everything though. At the top of my head, unfortunately.
So historically,
But
do you try new things? Because I'll say myself selfishly, like I'm awful at trying new foods. Like for me, I like what I like, I know what I like, and like for me, texture and like visualization makes a difference. Like for you, even growing up, like were you trying new things? Were you open to stuff, or do you kind of like your set of things you like?
so I mean, that's the thing. As a kid, you like the same things. Your usual. You don't
Yeah,
want to try anything different. Now that I'm older, I've I went outside the box and my comfort zone, and I've tried anything and everything really. So I'm open to trying anything once.
got it.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
Where can people
and
find
then
these the vlogs of yours? Like it's on YouTube, I assume. I know you mentioned a
well,
Patreon.
yeah,
Like, what are some of the ways to look for you?
yeah. So that the way you can see like grocery goes, and the other spinoff is eating with Jeffy, and that's basically me going to different restaurants or door dashing food and trying different food from obviously different places, but and then leaving a rating of it. But then that is on the Patreon, so patreon.com/, cooking with Jeffy, or you can just search cooking with Jeffy on search bar when you go to patreon.com.
Nice.
And my other thing I do is, uh, oh, actually, you can see uh, like teasers. I've been posting teasers recently on my YouTube channel, which is Jam Productions Incorporated.
Is
Um,
that all one word on YouTube, or are there spaces, or
it's yeah. Well, Jam is my initials, and then it's Productions Incorporated. It's 3 words, and then it's INC. Period.
got it?
Um, I'll send you all the links
Awesome.
to via message and stuff
Cool. I'll post
when
it
we
when
well off
this
air.
comes out. Perfect.
But yeah, that's you can see that, and then that's where you can see my vlog, Jeff's Life, which I started in 2023. I was documenting essentially month by month of on my way to turning 40, and then I was having fun with it that I decided to continue it. So there's currently 2 years worth of the last 2 years of my life, essentially.
Oh,
um,
awesome.
it's a monthly vlog series, like I said. So it's that's up there on that channel,
What
and
have you What have you learned during these processes? I'll take a step back and say this. So, like for me, like launching the podcast back in July, there's a lot of things I didn't know that I was walking into, right? And like specifically from a podcast in terms of like how to record it, how to publish it, how to market it, how to even all sorts of stuff, whatever. And like over the course of time, obviously with a show of one person, I'm doing everything I can to kind of like get it out there and kind of do everything on my own. Like as you've done the various, YouTube channel, the Patreon, and the monthly vlog, like what would you say kind of going into it did you like necessarily not know but kind of learned along the way, kind of taught yourself?
I mean, I didn't go to school at all for it, but I wish I did. I love like video editing.
Okay.
I love putting this together. So there's this app I use on my phone. I do it all from my phone because my computer is slow. But uh, I just learning different ways to edit and stuff like that. So I'm always learning new stuff. I'm trying some new stuff recently with these latest vlogs and stuff too that I've had. Um, and I have ideas to you know uh, spice it up a little too, jazz it up a little bit.
Filters,
Um,
transitions, stuff like that. You're saying?
Stuff like that, yeah,
Yeah.
and effects and stuff like that. So for the upcoming months, but yeah, and it was also a matter of me putting myself out there because I was hesitant at first,
Of course.
but now I just I don't care what people if they like me, they like me. If they don't, I don't care.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, first of all, I totally get that, and the fact that putting a podcast out, you're exposing yourself to the world, right? You're putting out things
yeah,
that people wouldn't necessarily
and
know. Like,
I
sorry, God.
sorry not to cut you off, but I have done podcasts as well. I haven't the only one I personally have now is my Christmas one,
Okay.
which is seasonal. But other than that, I used to have a wrestling podcast that only lasted 50 episodes and it was bi-weekly. But uh, and that was a little bit more easier because I'm not on video. I'm just talking,
Of course.
But it's putting myself out there, like even with my cooking shows. But people seem to enjoy it and have fun with, So that's why I thought maybe they would like this Patreon. So I am in need of, Patreon supporters. So I would appreciate it if I get more support from there. Other than that, yeah, like I said, just putting myself out there and. You know what? I just realized. I'm sorry, I cut you off, and you were still talking. And
No, it's
go
okay.
ahead. You
It's
finish
okay.
it.
No, it's okay. This is
Yeah,
obviously interesting for you to share
yeah,
and such like that. I was going to ask also.
yeah.
So like when I first launched the podcast, I was trying to figure out like, do I monetize this? Do I not monetize it as a hobby? Is it an income stream?
Right,
Whatever it is. But I was like, you know what? I need to kind of get like a listening audience before I can even consider trying to figure out ways to monetize it. Talking to
yeah,
a buddy of ours, Andrew Husfar from the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Group, like he's in the Major World Order, which is a podcast which is basically
right,
behind a Patreon paywall. And I even saw him a few weeks ago at the PWJ Wrestling Show, and he was like, "Hey, if you consider putting your show behind the paywall or like like a Patreon or something," I was like, "I mean, it's interesting, but for the most part, like based on like I'm still very early in this journey, and
right.
I'm not necessarily in a spot yet where I'm getting like a significant amount of listeners or views that people are doing for free to say, okay, the few of you that are actually listening or watching it now I want you to pay money for it. Like, I don't know that I can necessarily entice them enough, and I might just kill off my entire audience that way. So, like, I guess my question to you is, obviously having a Patreon, like, at what point did you look at it and say, I think my audience or my, whatever is large enough that it's worthwhile to kind of put some behind a paywall at this point?
Yeah. Well, see, I was optimistic because I have. If you go on my Facebook, my cooking page,
Yep.
my cooking show, I have over like 100, followers on there.
Okay.
So I'm thinking in my head, thinking, okay, so if I start this Patreon, they're all going to follow me on Patreon, right? That wasn't the case. But you
Right.
know what? I'm still the people who have signed up.
Sure.
I'm grateful for
Of course.
as little as it is, and I still, like I said, I love what I'm doing. I love editing. Uh, I love being creative. I've had so many creative ideas throughout my life, and that I've some never even put into fruition or just did one thing and then done because I didn't like how it turned out. That I'm starting to finally like doing all these great things, and I'm having a blast doing it. I
Awesome.
just wish more people could see it.
Of course.
Now, as far as the vlogs,
Yeah.
I don't I don't I'm not planning on going viral or anything or getting monetized because then that also screws up like the music.
Sure.
Copyright. I can't use it because monetization.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But
to that point, I'm going to say, like, so I've always stayed away from using real music in this podcast. Now, at this point, it's still a
yeah,
free podcast.
right,
I mean, I do put it up on YouTube, and I'll say the live show from a few weeks ago. One of the outros I had announcer Sam Laterna with a Paramore song in the background, and YouTube immediately flagged it. So I was like, you know what? I don't need to deal. It said, hey, if you're monetized, you can't, and Belarus and Russia
yeah,
will ban it. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with any of this stuff. So I was like, you know what? I haven't used any real music yet, and I still don't. Maybe one day I'll
yeah,
figure out what works. But I mean, I guess I'm comfortable enough
yeah,
just kind of going with it as is now and leave myself open enough for the future in case I decide to try to, take the next step.
yeah.
Cool.
So
So with that said, we are running late in time. I know you did mention a number of different things that you have that obviously, your different social medias and whatever else like that. Is there anything else that you want to add to or kind of put out there before we close out for the week?
um, just find me on. You can follow me personally on Instagram. I don't give anyone my Facebook unless I know you. But Instagram at Jam and Jeff underscore, and the Facebook you can follow me at though is Cooking with Jeffy, as well as Jam Productions Incorporated on Facebook as well and YouTube.
Awesome.
Other than that, that's about it.
Very cool. Well, Jeff, thank you once again for joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story and taking me on your journey through concerts and just everything else in life. It's really appreciate it. And it's great to meet you as well, Jeff. Thank you for that. With that said, to all of my listeners out there, want to make sure you guys remember that you can find the show on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Insta is at Seltzer77. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you could find me over at jeffseltzer.com. You can reach the show directly at everybodyhasastory@gmail.com. Beyond that, just a reminder, we're on all podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora. If you can find a podcast, you can probably find this podcast. Any questions, as always, feel free to reach out on either Instagram account, Seltzer77, or Everybody Has a Story Pod. If you want to be a guest, DM me, let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can set it up. Otherwise, have a great week, and we'll chat more next week. Take care, friends. Bye.